There's a 2027 Toyota Tundra sitting on a dealer lot right now, and it's running the exact same twin-turbo V6 that Toyota has recalled more than 270,000 times. So before you sign for one, or before you panic about the one already in your driveway, the only question that actually matters is this: did Toyota fix it for 2027, or did they just stop telling you it's broken? Because the answer isn't the clean yes the salesman wants to give you, and it isn't the flat no the internet wants to give you either. It's stranger than both. Toyota did change something real for 2027. They also quietly changed how they handle the trucks that already failed, and that second move tells you far more than the first one. Let's get into what's actually under the hood of that 2027 truck, and whether it's safe to trust. To understand why this even matters, you have to understand what Toyota threw away. For close to 2 decades, the Tundra ran a 5.7-liter V8, the third generation of Toyota's iForce engine. It made a modest 381 horsepower, it drank fuel like it was free, and it was about as sophisticated as a cinder block. And that was the entire point. That V8 would tow, haul, idle in the desert, get neglected for 100,000 miles, and just keep running. It's the engine that turned the Tundra into the truck a guy bought when he was finally done gambling on reliability. Sky-high resale, a bulletproof reputation, the kind of brand loyalty most manufacturers would trade an arm for. That reputation is the exact reason this whole mess stings the way it does. Then came the third-generation Tundra in 2022, and Toyota made a decision that looked brilliant on a spec sheet. They retired the V8 and dropped in a twin-turbocharged 3.4-liter V6, the V35A, an engine that was already living under the hood of Lexus LS and LX models. In standard iForce trim, it put out 389 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. Step up to the hybrid, the iForce Max, and you got 437 horsepower and a massive 583 pound-feet. More grunt than the old V8 ever dreamed of, and it arrived way down low in the rev range where towing actually needs it. Bolt that to a 10-speed automatic, tack on better fuel economy to keep the emissions regulators happy, and on paper, Toyota had built a smarter, stronger, more modern truck. The reviews were glowing, buyers lined up. For a little while, it genuinely looked like Toyota had pulled off the impossible, modernizing its truck without losing the one thing that made it a Tundra. That optimism did not survive contact with real owners. Within a couple of years, the failure reports started stacking up, and they carried a disturbing signature. These weren't tired, worn-out engines dying of old age. Trucks were failing young. Complaints logged with federal safety regulators describe engines coming apart at 25,000 miles, some as low as 10,000. And the failures were rarely gentle. Owners describe a metallic knock that appears out of nowhere, or no warning at all, just a sudden, violent loss of power. The cruelest part, it tended to strike exactly when the engine was working the hardest, towing a trailer, climbing a grade, running at high altitude. When a full-size truck loses power in moving traffic, that isn't a breakdown, that's a crash risk. And that's the precise reason regulators classify this as a safety defect instead of a simple warranty headache. Some owners reported a slightly different flavor of the same problem, a throttle that lags when you step on it and then lurches forward in a sudden surge, the kind of thing that can shove you into the bumper ahead of you at a stoplight. Complaints against this engine have now climbed past 3,000, and they are still coming in. Toyota's response arrived in waves, and the pattern is worth walking through slowly, because the pattern is the story. The first recall hit in May of 2024, covering just over 102,000 vehicles, roughly 98,000 Tundras, and around 3,500 Lexus LX600s, all built inside a specific window from late 2021 into 2023. And Toyota made an expensive promise. It would replace those engines outright, even the ones that hadn't failed yet, many of them getting a fresh short block. Then November of 2025 brought the second wave, another 127,000 vehicles, and this time the net widened to pull in the Lexus GX for the first time, right alongside more Tundras and more LX models. Toyota disclosed it had already fielded over 2,600 warranty claims and 300 separate field reports on these failures through October alone, traced to engines built at both its Alabama plant and its Tahara plant in Japan. Then May of 2026 delivered a third recall, roughly 44,000 more model year 2024 Tundras, worded almost identically to the two before it. Stack all three on top of each other and you arrive at the number in the headline. More than 250,000 vehicles, with over 70,000 engines already yanked out and replaced. That is not a bad batch. That is a defect the company has been chasing across multiple model years and multiple factories on 2 continents. So, what is Toyota actually chasing? Every one of these failures traces back to a single component, the number 1 main bearing. Picture the crankshaft, the spinning steel spine of the engine. It rides on a set of main bearings, thin metal shells that float the crank on a film of pressurized oil thinner than a human hair. That film is the only thing standing between smooth power and metal grinding directly on metal at thousands of RPM. Toyota's official explanation is that microscopic shards of machining debris, leftover metal from the manufacturing process, can cling to that number 1 bearing and destroy it under sustained load. But the company's own investigation quietly undercut its own story. When engineers tore these engines down, they found that the internal pressure in this design stacks up right on that same number 1 bearing, loaded by the tension in the timing chain and the geometry of how the crank rotates. So, while debris may well be the spark, the reason the failure lands on the same bearing every single time points straight at the engine's design, not just a messy assembly line. And there is one clue that's nearly impossible to explain away. The hybrids were never recalled. The hybrid Tundra and the Lexus LX700H run the same engine family, yet they have sat out every one of these campaigns. Loose metal shavings can't tell the difference between a hybrid and a gas truck, but the loads, the tune, and the stress landing on that bearing absolutely can. And that is precisely the thread the lawyers are now pulling on. And this was never just a truck problem, which is a detail that gets lost. That identical V35A powers the Lexus LX, a luxury SUV that stickers well past $100,000, and the Lexus GX 550 that opens around $67,000. When the same engine grenades in a bare-bones work truck and a 6-figure luxury flagship, it torches the easiest excuse in the book that owners were simply abusing their trucks. A plumber towing a skid steer and a Lexus buyer commuting to the country club do not drive anything alike, but they were all coasting into the service drive with the same dead bearing. That is the moment a warranty problem crosses the line into a genuine engineering scandal. Quick thing before we get to the 2027 answer. If any of this is helping you, tap like and subscribe. It genuinely keeps these coming. All right, the answer. So, what did Toyota actually change for the current truck? The short version is that the fix is real, but it's a lot quieter than you'd expect. Starting in July of 2024, every one of these engines has been built with a revised number 1 main bearing, along with manufacturing changes aimed at finally clearing that debris for good. Toyota's own recall documents state that engines built after those changes fall outside the affected production window, and the company's position is blunt. It found the problem and it corrected it. Now notice exactly what that does and doesn't mean. Toyota did not bring the V8 back. It did not engineer some clean sheet replacement engine for 2027. The 2027 Tundra runs the very same V35A family, only now built with that updated bearing and the improved process. So, a brand new 2027 gas truck genuinely rolls off the line better than a 2022 did. And that's the single most important fact almost every video on this subject skips right past. But whether paper equals proof is an entirely different question, and you answer that one by watching what Toyota does when it thinks the cameras are off. And what Toyota did next is the real tell. For 2 straight years, its remedy for a suspect engine was simple and costly: a brand new engine, no argument. Then, in June of 2026, it quietly changed course. Instead of automatic replacements, dealers now run an inspection. A technician changes the oil, brings the engine up to temperature, removes the accessory belts, and taps the front of the crankshaft with a small plastic hammer, while an accelerometer and Toyota's software read the vibration that bounces back. The software measures the resonant frequency at the nose of the crank to estimate whether that number 1 bearing has started to wear, and it cross-checks your actual driving data to decide whether you've even loaded the engine hard enough for the reading to mean anything. If it can't confirm the bearing is healthy, or if you simply haven't driven the truck hard enough to tell, you get a new engine. But if the software decides you're fine, you keep the one you've got, and you drive away hoping it was right. Owners are already calling it the hammer test, And the obvious question is why a company would ever walk back from just replacing engines. Follow the math. Building an extra 250,000 engines is a financial gut punch, even for a giant like Toyota. And a tap test that lets a huge share of those trucks keep their original engine is dramatically cheaper. Critics and owner groups read the switch in one flat sentence. It's about slowing the financial bleeding and dodging the two words Toyota has never once said aloud: design flaw. Because the second those words are spoken, recalls become admissions, and admissions become liability. And that liability is already being tested in court. 3 owners from Vermont, Oregon, and North Carolina are suing Toyota, arguing the recall doesn't go nearly far enough, that it initially excluded the 2024 trucks and every hybrid, that owners are stuck driving vehicles the company admits can fail with no firm timeline for a real cure, and that even a replacement engine may not fix the underlying problem. As of 2026, that case has pushed past the filing stage into active discovery and class certification, while safety advocates have separately petitioned for a broader, government-ordered recall that so far hasn't been granted. A company that is truly confident that solved this doesn't usually need a hammer in one hand and a legal defense in the other. If your Tundra has thrown a knock, a code, or a rough idle, drop your model, year, and mileage in the comments. The pattern down there tells a straighter story than any press release. So, should you trust the 2027? Honest take. The 2027 gas truck is the most fixed version of this engine that has ever existed. And if you buy one, you are getting the revised bearing and the cleaner build. But it is still the same V35A design that's fighting a lawsuit, and Toyota still won't call the root cause what a lot of independent mechanics believe it is. If you want the safest bet in the whole lineup, the iForce Max Hybrid has stayed out of this entire mess since day one. And if you already own a 2022 through 2024, do 3 things. Run your VIN and find your exact recall campaign. If you're in that original 2024 group, demand the full engine replacement, not the hammer test, because those trucks still qualify for it. And keep every service record, because a truck carrying this history is worth less at trade-in whether it ever fails or not. So, is the 2027 Tundra V6 fixed? The most honest answer anyone can give you right now is this. Toyota changed the hardware, but they haven't earned the word yet, and they're burning a lot of energy making sure they never have to say design flaw. If you own one of these, Tundra, Tundra Hybrid, Lexus LX, or GX, drop your year and mileage below so other owners can see the real pattern. Send this to anyone about to sign for a new Tundra. And hit like and subscribe so the next one finds you before the dealership does. See you in the next one.